Let's go across to Sanjay Lazar, who tracks aviation very closely. Sanjay, this is absolutely horrific. 240 plus people on board this flight from Ahmedabad to London Gatwick. It crashed shortly after takeoff. Is there anything that you can share with us at this stage?
First of all, Mushnu, I'm shocked. It's a very, very sad and tragic day for all of us in aviation, and especially those who are connected with Air India, especially. So many, I have new friends and colleagues who've been, former colleagues on that aircraft. Very shocking. Looking at the visuals on your channel and elsewhere, on the social media, I can see obviously the aircraft could not climb. He declared a Mayday, as far as I know. Also, I'm told that the temperature was extremely high. I don't know what the runway length that was used. I don't want to speculate, but I'm given to understand 175 knots was the speed that they had attained at takeoff, which has come to us from sources in Ahmedabad.
Flight radar says that as well. Flight radar, Sanjay, says that as well. And to me, that appears to be an extremely low, airspeed for an aircraft which was at about 620 feet. It should have been much more than that.
Much more. But it also, you can see that the aircraft was unable to climb from the visuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's collapsing. So I don't know whether it was engines that failed and the thrust was not enough, or the V2 was just not enough for them to pick up speed and move on and ascend. But it's a very tragic day. I can see it struck the building. There's parts of the aircraft strewn on top of the building. So obviously chances of too many survivors are distant. I'm praying that we find as many as possible, because the aircraft, remember, going to London was full laden with fuel. So that's a lot of fuel.
All right, just hold on a second, Sanjay. I'm joined now by Captain Saurabh Bhatnagar. He's a former senior captain for Indigo and a senior commander for Air India Express. Thank you, Captain Bhatnagar, very much for speaking to us. It's extremely sad what has taken place. 240 plus people on that aircraft, and we don't even know the number of people on the ground. It's crashed in a busy residential area. But in terms of what you see from that footage, the aircraft wasn't climbing. Prima facie, does it appear to be a problem with the engines, or perhaps even the engine setting?
Hi Vishnu. Very tragic incident or accident, I would rather say, which has happened. Yes, what the footage, what I have also seen on what the reports are, what I'm getting, it's just happened after unstuck. The undercarriage appears to be still up, and it looks like prima facie case of multiple bird hits, wherein both the engines have lost power. And that's the reason the aircraft, the unstuck was the aircraft takeoff was perfect, and just, I believe, short of taking the gear up, the aircraft started descending, and which can happen only in case the engine loses power, or the aircraft starts developing or stops developing the lift. So that is but obviously the investigations will reveal what exactly.
No, but Captain, you're making a very interesting point. Has somebody told you, and obviously you're talking only to reliable people, that prima facie there does appear to have been multiple bird hits?
Yeah, that's it. The footage also, plus what obviously confirmed reports coming from the pilot fraternity is what that the prima facie, because when I used to fly and operate out of Ahmedabad, and there was obviously I would say the increased bird activities has already been a major problem in the Ahmedabad at times. So, but yes, over the couple of years, it has definitely drastically come down. But from the footage, it seems that the takeoff was uneventful, but immediately after takeoff, the landing gear was still up. So that means that thereafter, the aircraft coming down in a sort of controlled fashion. If you see that the aircraft came down in actually controlled fashion, that means, and obviously I came to know that the pilot had given out the Mayday call. It means that there was this thing, it was a distress situation, and only in the distress situation the pilot gives the Mayday call. And what I see is primarily because, as we all know that it was going to London, it was full fuel, the aircraft. What initially fired, and this black cloud was basically of the fuel which has burned immediately on impact.
No, Captain, I'm just going to go back and bring Sanjay in on this point as well. And Captain, we've spoken to you obviously in the past, and on the basis of respectable, informed and experienced aviators who you have been speaking to, the initial buzz on, on forums and in terms of personal communications with other pilots is that this Boeing 787-800 aircraft encountered multiple bird hits, evidently to its engines, which prevented it from gaining enough airspeed. That's the basic sense you're getting at this stage?
Well, Vishnu, it appears exactly as Captain has said, and that would explain why the aircraft did not have the power to lift if there were multiple bird hits on takeoff. It probably could not have gone beyond the 6-7 minute threshold, which is exactly where it collapsed and started falling like a rock in the sky. I completely concur. And let's also remember this is a reasonably new aircraft. It's only 11 years old, so it's not as though it had technical issues or stuff like that. So bird hit, and this is a residential area we are speaking of beyond the airport, that Magnani area. So obviously, possibly that there were birds in that area. We don't want to speculate, like Captain rightly said. Let's wait for more details to come out. But this is probably one of the key factors involved. I also saw, during our visuals, one of the bystanders saying he's pulled 11 or 12 people. So I'm hoping that they are safe in hospital and survivors. That's just one of the prayers that we can have now, because looking at the inferno, there's very little we can hope for here.
Captain Bhatnagar, I'm not sure if we, in fact, I'm just requesting my director, do we have audio of the final moments of the flight? Does that video have audio? All right. So if we can just try and see if we can get audio, because that's important to know if that aircraft, if the pilot has installed toga or maximum thrust at this point, which is what if you enter a situation like this, if you're not already at maximum power, you sort of you ensure that the thrust levers are pushed to the max, to the hilt, so that you can try and raise power. And if once that takes place, then there's a distinctive sound of the engines. And so we want to see if there's audio and whether it indicates that what setting the engines may have been in. But Captain Bhatnagar, anything else that you would like to add to the possibility of bird hits being a factor we should look at this stage?
Because I'm just analyzing the footage of immediately after takeoff. You see the gear is up, the nose is still up, and the aircraft it's in a controlled fashion, started as if sitting down on the runway on the same takeoff heading, which definitely means that there was no power. Even if you have a toga, if the toga, there would be some the change in the flight path of the aircraft. The moment you apply toga, there is a very massive thrust which is applied the moment you put toga.
Okay, Captain Bhatnagar, hold on for a moment. Listen to what we are playing out. This is got audio of the final moments. Let's raise audio and play it out, please. All right. Captain Bhatnagar, hold on. I'm going to play that out once again. All right. Let's play it out one more time. Keep the audio at the same level.
पूरे ही गए होंगे कोई बात मतलब सवारी देखनी चाहिए
Captain Bhatnagar, let me come back to you. Sanjay, I'll be with you in a moment. If anything, the sound appears to be going down. The moment
I couldn't hear the audio clearly. What exactly was being transmitted by the pilot? So
no, I'm trying to. No. What I'm trying to say is the sound of the engines. So, Captain, what I'd ask you to do is just listen to this. We'll play out the sound of the engines to try and establish whether, to go around thrust had been applied maximum power, or whether, in fact, there was a problem with the engines and we couldn't hear an appreciable, wind up of the engines. Let's just listen to that once again. Captain Bhatnagar, that's inconclusive to me. Obviously, when it passes the camera, which was filming this, it was louder. but it clearly indicates that the engines were, they were operational. You can clearly hear the sound, but whether the thrust was coming down or non-existent, we don't know. What could you tell us on the basis of what you heard over there?
I couldn't make out actually. If the pilot had applied toga, definitely there'll be appreciable sound of the engine that winding up, and immediately the flight path of the aircraft will change. But what I saw from the footage, there is absolutely looking at the way the flight path of the aircraft is happening, or the aircraft is going at a very gradual speed down. Even if you applied the toga, there'll be change. I don't think even after application of toga, nothing unappreciable happened. I don't think there was enough power in the engine which was developed so that the toga could have taken some effect.
All right, I'm now joined by Dr. Manish Doshi, spokesperson for the Congress Party in Gujarat. Dr. Doshi, your thoughts on this tragedy which has taken place?
बेहद गंभीर और दुखद दुर्घटना घटी है। जिस तरीके से मैं वही विस्तार के साथ नजदीक में था, मैंने देखा काफी वाले धुआं पूरी बादल में छा गए थे। कोई हादसा बड़ा हुआ, वही टाइम पे अर्जेंट मैसेज आया वहीं से हमारे कार्यकर्ता जब भाई ऐसा भाविक फलक की संख्या हमारे वहाँ कार्यकर्ता इसने बताया।
All right, this audio is very poor. We'll try and come back to Dr. Manish Doshi once we get clear sound. I believe we've got a couple of more eyewitnesses as well. We'll try and pull that out. Sanjay, you want to come in for a moment? There are two things which Captain Bhatnagar has told us at this stage. As an experienced aviator himself, who's been with Air India Express, and he's been a senior commander with Indigo as well, the possibility of bird hits cannot be ruled out. If there was ingestion of birds into the turbines of the twin-engine aircraft, at that point, then the aircraft may not have been able to develop the thrust that it needed to pull away and climb. Your initial thoughts on that angle, whether it's something that is obviously important to be looked at.
Definitely, and like Captain Bhatnagar said, could be that there was bird hit, ingestion of birds, and the aircraft fall. That could also be, and I hate to say this, wrong configuration for takeoff and the aircraft stalled is also a possibility which we need to look at. Maybe the DGCA when it looks into it, because the landing gear is down, so we really don't know what actually happened there. But it's clear that the aircraft stalled and then it started dropping. So this is a serious thing. I think we are more need to focus here on how many survivors. I believe from latest SMSs I'm getting from Ahmedabad, about 40 bodies have been recovered. They're still going on at the site, from what I understand.
Now, Sanjay, in terms of the worst ever Air India incidents in recent, in the last, let's say, 4 decades, Air India 855, a Boeing 747, went down off Bombay with 213 people. Then there was Air India flight 182, which you know all about, the Kanishka flight with 329 fatalities. That was a bomb blast. Since then, there have been incidents involving Air India Express, but this is the first incident involving Air India. Any thoughts on this? Air India Express operates smaller capacity aircraft, single aisle aircraft, shorter routes. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner, and this is probably the first crash of a Boeing 787, is a very major twin aisle long range airliner.
It's one of the first 787 crashes that we've heard about the world over, and it's like I said, it's been a very safe aircraft. We'll have to wait and see and look into it. My thoughts are just that there's going to be a lot of loss here, and we need to brace for it, because looking at the scenes hitting the building, parts of the aircraft breaking off on top of the building and then down, the inferno.
Sanjay, just to interrupt you, I can confirm that this is probably the first fatal crash of a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. The Dreamliner has had a good safety record. No confirmed fatal crashes or hull losses in operational history, or in its operational history from 2009 to 2025. This is the first one. More than 1,000 aircraft which have been delivered. This is just horrific that, so many lives have been lost quite clearly in this particular incident. Do not know about the number of survivors at this stage. Captain Bhatnagar, any further thoughts? We do know that one of the pilots did let out a Mayday call indicating that they had a serious emergency on board. Anything else? Any thoughts that you can share?
I think that what been said, that yes, there is a possibility of stalling the aircraft also, because the aircraft weight was, I think, it must be taking over the maximum weight, and how the aircraft is stalled, that also is a possibility, because in case if you pull up quite high and the aircraft stalls, the height was very less for the aircraft to recover from a stall. So that also could be one of the possibility. Partial loss of the one engine, the one bird hit is also a possibility, since there was no height and since the weight of the airplane plus the temperature is quite high. So that's another is a problematic thing in aviation.
No, it is a problematic issue in aviation. Sanjay, go ahead with your thoughts at this stage.
Completely, because Ahmedabad is a hot city. This is peak afternoon time. So the temperature must have been really high. The runway length required must have been extensive. So therefore also the thrust required. Maybe this was, possibly an incorrect configuration or what, we don't know. But be that as it may, it's very clear the engines have stalled and the aircraft has dropped. So I concur there on that point. I don't know whether it was birds that were ingested or what, but also, like you said, it's 240 plus passengers and crew. So almost a full flight with luggage, very heavy, with even if it's birds in one engine, it would have been huge difficulty for the aircraft to climb.
Captain Bhatnagar, let's talk a little bit about improper engine configuration. Obviously, that's something which pilots configure the length of the runway into their flight management system. They configure the computer decides or looks at the weight of the aircraft, the ambient temperature, the length of the runway, and then decides sometimes the optimal power settings which can be used during the takeoff run. This is if the airline is trying to save fuel in a sense during the takeoff process. However, there is always the possibility of using maximum thrust. Now, it was very hot today. Is that a factor which likely impacts? I mean, we know it does, but could you explain to us how temperature impacts the takeoff performance of all aircraft?
The very fact that the aircraft has taken off, there was a safe takeoff. These days everything is computerized. You've got a flight management system which calculates depending upon the weight of the aeroplane, the temperature outside, fuel and all everything is put in the computer software, and thereafter computer gives us the speed, and in case if it is not coming, so it will not give you the result in the sense it will not give you, the computer will not, the flight management system will not give you the solution for that. So in that case you'll have to reduce your all-up weight. So what happens is that when the temperature of, like for example Patna, like for example Ranchi, where the elevation is quite high, the density is less, so that in the afternoon peak hour temperature high, the thrust reduction takes place. When the thrust reduction takes place, so we have to keep within the available length of the runway, the all-up weight, the computer calculates what should be your all-up weight for today for this flight. Only after that you get the solution in respect of the speeds and the thrust. Yes, nobody takes off with the toga basically to save the engine life. And if the computer is saying that this reduced temperature or flex, we call it, takeoff is not possible, computer will give a solution that you have to apply toga. Many a times when I used to fly, the computer has given a solution of toga. So that means that if the aircraft will not even take off. It doesn't reach the required speed to rotate the aeroplane. In this footage, what the aircraft has taken off. But yes, a partial reduce of power of one engine, definitely being a heavy aircraft with full fuel, but again, if the pilot has put in toga, the aircraft and the gradient is clear for the single engine departure as well.
But Captain, let me ask you one question. Is there any possibility, is there any scenario in which the auto throttle went into idle mode, assuming of course that auto throttle was picked at this stage of the flight? Would that be the case? Could that be the case?
No, I don't think so. In case you have a auto throttle failure, at the same time you can have a manual. You can always
override it, right? Instantly, by jamming the throttles forward, is what you're saying.
But the thing is that the thrust was not reduced. That's the main thing. That's why the aircraft was going down.
What we can do at this stage, and my colleague Gauri also joins us, is, and again, this is by no means definitive. We are not experts. I do track aviation very, very closely, but to try and gauge the state of the performance of the engines, what we can do is play out the audio, right? As we see the moments preceding the crash and the crash itself. Let's do that one more time. Footage in a moment. What you see on the left, all right, we have it. Let's just take a look.
लंबी सवारी कितनी चाहिए पूरे ही गए होंगे कोई बात
It's quite clear to me, Captain Bhatnagar and Sanjay, that if there was toga which should have been applied at this stage or maximum go around power, then the engines were not making that very distinctive sound, which is much, much louder than what we actually heard. Captain Bhatnagar?
First of all, I don't. Again, I couldn't make out. But it is very now we don't know whether the aircraft took off with the flex power or with toga because high temperature. If the computer has given a solution for the toga, because that's very difficult to now see whether the toga was applied right at the start of the takeoff or after this, when the aircraft started going down. So that will come to know only when the investigation, where was the thrust levers when the aircraft was crashed, whether they were in the climb thrust or whether they were in the toga mode. So that's one thing is not clear if the aircraft took off with toga or not.
It's very